So hope you all enjoyed your Christmas holidays and that you celebrated. Those who had Christmas have celebrated well and ready to start with your usual work now, right? Um, and also at the beginning of the lecture, once again, just a small reminder, if you are not required to speak. If you do not have a question to ask, then kindly keep your microphones on mute mode, right? Otherwise, you will be disturbing the other participants of the lecture. Okay. What else do we have on the chat? Someone says that you cannot hear me. Is it true? Do you have an issue with hearing me properly? Please let me know before starting the lecture. One person has told me that I'm not audible. Is that true to everyone else? Right. I think then that person, right. I think it's a problem with your connection then. Since everyone else has told that they can hear me, right? So you better check whether there's something wrong with your connection. Right. So today we have to start with a new chapter, right? Chapter number 2. But before we move on to this particular chapter, let's just quickly go through what we have learned during our first chapter, right? So we provided you an introduction to information systems, right? We distinguished between data and information, and we explained to you what an information system means, and what else did we learn? We also introduced you to the concept of digital firms, right? There are emerging digital firms, and we described some characteristics of digital firms to you, right? We explained how almost all the organizations during this current pandemic period, how they are being benefited by these kinds of concepts of digital firms. And then we also explained to you regarding certain strategic business objectives which firms usually have when they invest in information systems, right? So we learned about 6 strategic business objectives uh, as to why organizations invest in information systems, right? I hope you at least remember 2 or 3 of them. You should remember all 6 of them, but for now, I think you can recall at least some of them. And then we also discussed about certain perspectives through which we can look at information systems, right? We explained about the organizational perspective, the managerial perspective, and the technological perspectives of looking at information systems. So I hope you all can remember the differences between these 3 as well. And then we talked about how information systems and the organization coexist with each other. We introduced this through the concept of socio-technical perspective to information systems, right? How the organizational aspects and the technological aspects coexist with each other. That we have explained to you. And then we also talked about the concept of complementary assets, right? We understood how certain firms gain more return out of the investments they make. Although 2 firms may be making the similar amount of investment, one firm might be getting a higher amount of return than the other firm. So we understood that one reason for this could be because of complementary assets, right? So that is where we stopped during the last chapter. I hope you all can remember uh, the content that we have discussed throughout this lecture during chapter number 1, right? So today we are going to start with a new topic, global e-business, how businesses use information systems, right? So let's first look at what sort of content we hope to cover through this lecture. So we are going to define and describe business processes and their relationship to information systems, right? And then we are going to evaluate the role played by systems serving the various levels of management in a business and their relationship to each other. Now, there are various kinds of systems used within a business firm, and they serve different levels of management within a business firm. You all might have heard by now the different levels, the basic levels of management that are there within an organization, yeah, in a typical organization. So there are different types of systems that are unique or that serve these specific management levels. So we are going to introduce you about those systems as well. Then explain how enterprise applications, intranets, extranets, etc. improve organizational performance. Now also we will be introducing you to these concepts of enterprise applications. We told that in the current context, there are many ways through which information systems add value to the organization, right? How these systems connect the entire organization. Up to some extent, we have discussed about this in the first chapter. So through this chapter, we are going to go in detail about these different types of systems and network-based technologies that are there in order to improve organizational performance, right? And we also hope to talk about the differences between these concepts of e-business, e-commerce, and e-government. Now, these concepts are being used abundantly in the current context. These are new concepts which have been enabled due to technology, right? Which have been popularly discussed in the current context. So we are going to introduce you to these concepts at the end of this lecture, right? So moving on. First, let's look at business processes, right? So the first point here says that business processes are a collection of activities required to produce a product or service. That's a very basic understanding, right? I think you all study as management students, you all have come across this concept of business processes in many stages of your degree program. So to define it very simply, in simplest of terms, what is a business process? It's a collection of activities, no, required to produce a product or service. So අපි මොකක් හරි භාණ්ඩයක් හරි සේවාවක් හරි නිෂ්පාදනය කරන්න භාවිතා කරන ඇක්ටිවිටීස් ක්‍රියාකාරකම් සමූහයක එකතුවක් තමයි අපි ව්‍යාපාර ක්‍රියාවලියක් කියලා හඳුන්වන්නේ නේ. Business process is that. So but when we go further into this definition, we cannot stop just by saying that it's a collection of activities, right? So we look in depth into this concept of business processes, right? So what do these activities consist of, right? Comprise of. මේ activities මොනවාගෙන්ද හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ, right? මේ activities ඇතුලේ මොනවාද ඇත්තටම වෙන්නේ, right? So the next point says these activities are supported by flows of material, information, and knowledge among the participants in business processes. So within these business processes, there are various participants. There might be various different levels of management, different types of employees who have different job roles, right, within the same process. So among these different people or among these different participants who are joining to the business process, different types of things are being circulated within the same business process. For example, here we have given things like material, right? Now, for example, if it's a process of assembling, right, manufacturing a car, there is essentially a flow of materials, right? Materials have to be circulated among the process within the process in order for the car to be manufactured, right? Then flows of information, right? Definitely there has to be a flow of information. Can you give me an example of how information flows within business processes? according to your understand. Now you know very well what a business process is, right? In addition to material, we said that there is a flow of information also within business processes. Can you tell me with an example how information flows across the process? This is a very basic question actually, not a very hard question. Just to see that we are on the same page. Can you all just tell me how information flows within business processes? Any idea? ව්‍යාපාර ක්‍රියාවලියක් ඇතුලේ තොරතුරු හුවමාරු වෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ අපි ඇයි කොයි වගේ අවස්ථාවන් වලදී තොරතුරු හුවමාරු වෙනවද? According to your understanding, can you tell me how information flows within business processes? Any idea? One person says top management provides instructions to lower level managers. Yes, that's a correct answer. So, what should be done, right? The information as to what needs to be done in order to complete a task. Maybe the top management provides that information to lower level management, right? Let's say handling a customer, right? Or closing a business deal, right? So there might be a process, there might be a set of activities within this business process. So maybe a senior management is advising a lower level management who are two different participants within this business process as to how you should handle this customer, right? Information regarding the, let's say, credit amount, right? Maybe we are payable to that customer, or maybe about the goods that need to be delivered to the customer, or maybe regarding the, let's say, period or terms agreed with this customer, the period during which we should deliver the goods to the customer. So various types of information flow might be there. It doesn't have to be top to bottom only. It can be bottom to top also, right? Or it can be between two different employees or participants at the same level too, right? Yeah, very good. There's another example giving information to production department how much to produce. That's a very correct answer. Now let's say in a business process where you consider manufacturing a product, right? Or let's say you are manufacturing a certain order to be delivered to a particular customer, right? So before starting this production, maybe now in your answer you had mentioned the production department receives information about how much to produce. Yes, that is correct, right? Based on the nature of the order that is received to your organization, uh, to your production department, you have to inform what is the quantity of this product requested from the customer, right? Or what type of customizations has this customer requested from our production department, right? And maybe based on the raw materials in our warehouse, how should this product be produced? I mean, in what kind of batches, right? So likewise, there might be various types of information circulating across these different types of business processes, right? Uh, so the third point says, and also knowledge flow, right? Within business process, you can also have a flow of knowledge, right? In addition to information, knowledge or expertise of one person can be shared with another, right? Just simply think something like, let's say in a hotel chain, right? So knowledge has to be shared, right? Food knowledge regarding how to make a certain dish might be, you have to share that knowledge. The head chef might be sharing that knowledge with the other chefs in that section, right? In order to for this cuisine to be completed, right? So likewise, knowledge transfers might be there. Scientific knowledge might be transferred, right? So likewise, within the processes, there are these different kinds of flows. Right? So at the exam, if you are asked what is a business process, please don't stop your answer by saying that there are a collection of activities required to produce a product or service. We expect you to elaborate by relating these different types of material flows, information flows, and knowledge flows, and etc. Right? So moving on, third point, to a large extent, the performance of a business firm depends on how well its business processes are designed and coordinated. So that is true, right? Now, for the performance of a business firm, the performance of a business process are very crucial. If your business processes are well organized, if they are well coordinated, if the business processes are related to each other in a acceptable or optimal manner, then that directly impacts on a better performance of the firm, right? So, on the other hand, if these business processes are not very well coordinated, if they are not well designed, if they are not well organized, right? Then, on the other hand, also the company may have to face certain detrimental effects. They may have to face certain negative impacts, right? For example, in the next point, it says a company's business processes can be a source of competitive strength or liabilities. Just like I mentioned that if your organization has very well designed business processes, on the other hand, if they are not well designed or coordinated and programmed, that can be a liability for your organization. That means that can cause certain negative impacts to your organization. Can you give me examples of how poorly designed and coordinated business processes can be a liability to an organization? කොහොමද business process එකක් organization එකකට negative impact එකක් ගෙනෙන්නේ? එහෙම නැත්නම් හරියට design කරලා නැති business process එකක් කොහොමද organization එකකට liability එකක් වෙන්නේ? Can you give me an example how that happens? Any idea? Right, now simply think, if there are errors and inaccuracies in your business process, then the outcome will be erroneous, right? There might be, right, we have some answers also. There's an answer saying legal issues. Can you elaborate on that? Yes, I can see your thinking process, but can you explain more how these could lead to legal issues? And also we have another answer, when it's not well organized, it will not be cost effective. Yes, that is correct. If your organization processes are not well designed, then it may cause inefficiencies within your business processes, and sometimes your resources might not be consumed in an optimal way, right? They may not be consumed in a way which is profitable for your organization. Let's say, for example, there's an overconsumption of resources due to poor organization of your business process. Then that means there might be cost-wise impact to your organization. Then if what customer wants is not correctly delivered back to the manager, customer will not come back. Yes, I can see you under your thought process there. That means if you're, let's say, in a business process where you're handling a customer, and let's say something like a customer relationship management. So within that process, if your business process does not clearly capture what the customer wants, if they are not well communicated through all the parties involved in the process of customer handling, right? If we do not deliver, if this information is not delivered on time, or maybe there are miscommunications about the requirements of the customer, then we might be delivering a dissatisfactory service to the customer. The customer might not be satisfied about the service we provide, right? Then that means there's a risk of us losing the customer. Yes, so you have a good understanding about how this business process can be a liability to the organization. Also, it might cause certain unproductivities in the labor, right? There might be idling time, and therefore the labor force might be unproductive, right? And time will be wasted, and also sometimes you might not be able to meet your deadlines. Let's say you're handling a project, if your processes are not well coordinated and designed, you might not be able to complete it on time, right? So there might be wastage of resources, and also likewise you mentioned customer dissatisfaction and many other liabilities on the part of the business, right? So that is why it is very important for organization to have a good understanding about their business processes and to engineer the business processes in a optimal way, right? To suit their organization, to suit their business structure, right? Covering the entire enterprise sometimes maybe, and covering the right people, the right participants along the way, and also to ensure that there's a proper coordination among all participants involving in the process, likewise, right? So moving on, every business can be seen as a collection of business processes. That is true, right? Businesses are nothing but a collection of different business processes. There might be processes relating to your finance function, marketing function, human resource function, production, operations, right? Research and development. All these things are consisted of a set of business processes, right? So that is why we say that every business can be seen as a collection of business processes, right? Some of which are part of larger encompassing processes. Now, some of these processes are a subset of a large set of processes. We'll discuss about that in detail as we move along the lecture, right? Many business processes are tied to a specific functional area. Other business processes cross many different functional areas and require coordination across departments. Now, there are some business processes which are specific to one single functional area, maybe finance, maybe marketing, maybe sales. So these business processes are unique and tied to this specific functional area only. But also on the other hand, there are certain business processes which crosses between multiple functional areas. Right? So let's look at the next illustration so that it is clearer to you. Now here we have illustrated examples of functional business processes. That means these business processes are unique or they are tied to a specific single functional area. Right? For example, here if we take manufacturing and production, there is assembling the product. Right? So within this process of assembling the product, there might be various activities like we discussed earlier, right? You might have to bring the materials, parts and equipments at the factory floor, right? You might have to assemble, one section might have to assemble certain parts of this material and then send along to the next process in order to assemble the other required parts, right? Likewise, there might be various activities involved. Checking for quality of the manufactured product, producing bills of materials. Likewise, there are various business processes. They have activities which are unique to these individual business processes. If we go to sales and marketing, there are different processes such as identifying customers, making customers aware of the product, right? So now, for example, if we take making customers aware of the product, there might be various activities, right? You might have to create a value proposition. You might have to think of ways to deliver benefits to the customers, right? So when you design the value proposition according to the bundle of benefits that you decided you are going to deliver, right? You might think of a way to communicate this to your customers. How are we going to communicate to our customer about our value proposition, that is our product or service? How are we going to communicate? What methods are we going to use, right? And how do we gain feedback from the customers? How do we make sure that the customers are aware of our product, right? Likewise, there are different sets of activities within this business process. Selling the product, and then if we go to finance and accounting function, you might be having the processes like paying creditors, creating financial statements, managing cash accounts, human resources also. You might have processes like hiring employees, evaluating job performance, enrolling employees in benefit plans. So I'm not going to go into detail about each of these business process. Just to give you an idea, the intention of this table is to give you an idea that there are business processes which are unique to different functional areas. Right? But moving on, if you look at this figure 2.1, here we have illustrated the order fulfillment process. Now earlier we discussed that there are certain business processes that are tied to a specific functional area. Also certain business processes crossing between different functional areas as well. Now this is an example which shows you how different business processes cross in between multiple functional areas, right? So here we have illustrated the sales function, accounting function, and manufacturing and production function. Right? So these are three different functional areas within an organization, right? So when this organization is thinking of fulfilling an order from a customer, right? The example is the order fulfillment process, right? What are the functional areas? What are the business processes that are attached to these different functional areas? Now, obviously, you might first have to generate the order. So the customer places an order with the organization. So the sales department or the sales functional area, they have to generate the order. Then they have to submit this order in order to check for credit with the accounting department. Do we have sufficient credit to manufacture this product, to manufacture this order? Is there credit availability for our organization? That you have to check with the accounts department. Then if the accounts department approves the credit required to manufacture, then what happens? They will generate an invoice, and also at the same time they will notify the manufacturing and production unit that they approve the manufacturing of this product because of the availability of credit. Therefore, the assembling of the product can begin, right? So then once the assembling is done, the product will be shipped. Now this is a very simple illustration of the order fulfillment process, right? There are number of activities and processes which come in between, but here we have tried to illustrate some basic activities which can be observed in any order fulfillment process and how they cross in between different functional areas, right? So fulfilling a customer order involves a complex set of steps that requires the close coordination of sales, accounting, and manufacturing functions. So like I explained, there has to be a proper coordination among these kind of various functional areas in order for this fulfillment process to be completed successfully, right? So I hope you understand that concept. Then we are going to look at how information technology improves business processes, right? කොහොමද තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය නිසා ව්‍යාපාරික ක්‍රියාවලිය වැඩි දියුණු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. හරි කොහොමද ඒවා improve වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. So one way is automate many steps in business processes that were formerly performed manually. Now this is one way of how technology can improve the business process of an organization. Now consider a traditional context, right? Where all the work has to be performed manually. For example, let's take something like inventory control or inventory management, right? So in a traditional business, all these tasks or activities related to inventory management had to be fulfilled manually, right? When inventory is received, that had to be entered manually, and then after that, when they are distributed among warehouses, the tracking of the inventory, right? And when inventory was reduced, they had to be manually recorded. And once again, when they are issued for production, right, those things had to be manually recorded. Then once these things are shipped, the tracking of the shipping part had to be done, and many such activities within this inventory management process had to be recorded manually using labor. But now, due to information technology, this manual work can be automated. For example, there are inventory management systems which enable organizations to, automate these various kinds of steps. For example, once this inventory is received, and at some point you may require labor in order to enter the information regarding this inventory that received. But when these are issued for production or when they are distributed among warehouses, so this reduction of the inventory and balancing of the items, these things happen in this system automatically without the intervention of humans, right? And tracking of this inventory once they are shipped and etc., all these things can be done using these inventory management systems that are present, that we can see in the present, right? So likewise, there are many other examples you also can think of, how business processes have been automated, right? So due to this automation, the requirement of human labor to complete tasks manually has been greatly reduced, right? Especially also in processes like customer relationship management, right? Handling the relationships with customer, this automated business process can be seen, right? Where you use CRM systems to keep track of customer, right? On the orders that they place with us, details of their orders, their special requirements, right? Any issues that have we have encountered with, and how that have been managed. So many of these kinds of activities have been automatically recorded in a system, right? So that human intervention has been made minimum, right? And the second point says, change the flow of information, making it possible for many more people to access and share information. So, in a traditional context, usually the way how information flowed and how information flows in the modern context where technology is applied is very different. Now, in the last class also, we discussed about this concept of ERP systems, enterprise resource planning systems. And in the forthcoming parts of this lecture, you will learn about concepts such as intranets or extranets. Right? So these kinds of technologies, they change the way how information flows. Right? For example, when you take an ERP system, we understood that it's a centralized repository of information and data, more like a central database, which provides access to many people at once, right? Or many people can gain access to this information. Therefore, the flow of information has been changed. Now, in a traditional context, sales department will have to communicate this information to the relevant department with which they usually communicate, maybe the production department, maybe the warehouse, right? So only if this information is being made available from one department to another will the other department have access to it, right? But now, using technology, this flow of information has been greatly changed, right? Many people are being empowered with information. They have access to information, right? Even lower level employees, they have access to information. Multiple departments have access to information at the same time at which the information is made available by one department, right? So likewise, flow of information has been changed so that many people can access and share information, right? Then the third point, replacing sequential steps with tasks that can be performed simultaneously. Now, in once again, let's consider a traditional context where you can see a lot of sequential steps, right? That means, let's say, an organization where they have a file-based culture, right? In an office, let's take a typical example of an office in a traditional context. Once a person attends to some tasks in this file, he or she will complete these tasks on that file, and then once that is completed, the file will be passed to the other officer. Then it will be passed to the other officer who is responsible for handling this information. So likewise, it's a sequential steps, right, happening one after the other. So the person who is at later stages of this process has to wait until the file or the task has been attended to by the first person in the sequence of the business process. But once again, with information technology, these kinds of sequential steps have been replaced with tasks that can be performed simultaneously. That means tasks that can be processed parallelly, right? Now, for example, there are document management systems which enable various participants in a business process to attend to the same document or to attend to the same case at the same time, not having to wait until the earlier person finishes. For example, let's think of something like loan processing, right, in banks or financial institutions. Now, this loan processing has a number of stages in order to complete the entire processing of a personal loan or a business loan or whatever. There are a number of stages that has to be performed, right? And there are a number of activities which has to be carried out. For example, you might be accepting the loan application or the loan file from the customer, and then you have to check for the credit report, right, whether this person is able to repay this loan. And then another person will be checking for title records when it comes to things like title of assets and all, where you have to do certain verifications and verification of multiple income sources, right? What is the income source with which this person is going to repay the loan? Are there any multiple income sources? So a person will be attending to that. And proof of insurance which we have provided, right? Or any securities which we have provided, are they really existing, right? And there will be a final review done, and then finally the certification will be issued. Now, with these modern document management systems, these kind of stages can be done simultaneously. For example, when the loan file is being accepted by the bank, or when the loan file is being opened, or when the loan application is received, right? This information is made available to all the people who are involving in this process of processing the loan, right? So the information relevant to this application is made available in a system to everyone participating in this processing of loan, and they can start attending to their work relevant to that loan file at the same time. loan application එකක් හම්බුනහම ඒ loan එක process කරන process එකට සම්බන්ධ වෙන හැම කෙනෙක්ටම එකම වෙලාවේ simultaneously බලා ගන්න පුළුවන් තමන්ගේ activity එකට අදාළව ඒ loan එකට අදාළව තමන්ට activities කරන්න පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. So simultaneously activities can be actually processed, right? Then eliminating delays in decision making. Obviously, so if you follow these earlier two methods of improving business processes, that means if you change the flow of information where one piece of information is made available to many people at the same time, and if you are able to replace your sequential steps with parallel steps or simultaneous steps, what is the result? Ultimately, it eliminates the delays in decision making, right? One person does not have to wait until another person completes their task in order to take decisions which he or she is responsible to take, right? Now, simply think the example of the bank teller, which I related to you during the last lecture. I told you how information is being or the authority is being given to the bank tellers to approve cash withdrawals so that he or she does not have to wait until the senior manager approves that cash withdrawal, right? So the system access has been given. The teller can access the account information of the customer and approve the withdrawal of the cash if it's a withdrawal of cash happening at the bank counter, right? So therefore, decision making delays that could happen can be easily eliminated because of information technology, right? Then the final point changes the way a business works and supports entirely new business models. This is also another special advantage of information technology because it gives the ability for a business to invent entirely new ways of doing the business, right? For example, here we have related ordering a book online from Amazon.com. Now, before information technology, was this kind of setting possible, or was ordering online possible before information technology? No, right? So in a traditional context, how did we used to buy books? When we were little, did we order them online? No, we used to go to a shop and buy a book, right? Or we used to go to the library and borrow a book. But now you don't have to physically visit a store and buy a book. Instead, online facilities have been established by these companies like Amazon, where you can order and you can purchase books online. And there are new versions of books in e-format, right? Not the physical book. You can read the e-books, right? And you can order and get them delivered to your home even if you wish to, right? So likewise, new ways of doing business or new business models have been enabled because of information technology. Not only this, what kind of other new business models can you think of that have been introduced due to IT? Not just ordering a book online. What else can you think of? Now, what about this Pick Me and Uber, which you use so abundantly, these online taxi services which you use, right? So they are new business models enabled due to IT, right? So before information technology, there was no facility for us to order a private taxi for us to go somewhere, right? So these are new business models, right? Um, there are some answers in the chat. Hospital channeling, yes, very good. And online education, yes, which you are experiencing right now. So all these things have been enabled due to information technology, right? So let's move forward. Right. Now we are moving to a new subtopic, systems for different management groups. Now at the beginning of this lecture also, I told you that, give me 1 second, I will